As a child actor, Michael J. Fox loved the fair. And he especially liked the rides and the cotton candy. And in his book, Always Looking Up, he recalls a particular summer when he was about 9 years old. An evangelical church had parked a convertible school bus, which was brightly painted in the style of kind of the Partridge Family, if you remember that, where a Bible lesson was continually in session inside of it. So the vehicle, they had taken all the bench seats out, and they had been outfitted with those little tiny, kids' chairs. You probably have them in your RE. And they had put religiously themed posters over the windows, and it really looked like a little tiny religious education classroom. So he climbed aboard, and we have a square one of these at my church, and I move around a lot. I'm a Polak, and I'm like all over the place. And this one goes like this, so I'm going to have to be careful here. So he climbed aboard, and he immediately detected a sulfur smell. So there was a man at the far end of the bus, and he was crouched over this big ashtray. And he was speaking to 3 or 4 kids that were already sitting down there by him. And he had lit a wooden kitchen match, one of those long ones. And he had tipped the head downward over the ashtray. And the flame was kind of licking that matchstick. And his other hand was hovering just a few inches above that fire. And the man said, "I wouldn't want to get any closer to that fire, would I? Or it would burn me." And all the other kids said, "Yeah, oh no, you wouldn't want to do that." So the man said, "Now imagine thousands of those flames burning every part of your body, every inch of your skin. You'd be screaming in pain." Well, kids, that's what hell's like. But there's news. There's good news. There's good news. Well, Fox says he didn't stick around for the good news. He'd already heard his parents and his teachers and his hockey coaches make effective points, good lessons, instill values without having to scare the living crap out of him, so he took off. So Fox was a nun, None, a person who has no religious affiliation. They're called the unchurched. The folks who check none on the paperwork that asks you what religion you belong to. Oftentimes when we go to the hospital, we have to say we're none because they don't have Unitarian-Universalists there when it says, what religion you are. Well, I was a nun until over 30 years ago when my father came to visit me when I was in college in Minneapolis, and he insisted that we find a UU church to visit that Sunday over the weekend when he was there. And he had become a UU several years before, and he thought, this would be perfect for you. You'd love it. And I said, I'm pretty sure that we don't have any of those kind of places here. And he said, get the yellow pages. That's what you did back then, because again, yeah, that was a long time ago. I didn't have a computer in college. I got my first computer when I was in seminary. And that thing only did word processing. Still had to go to the library to do my sermons. But anyway, so he said, get the yellow pages. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. And because I'm a smart aleck, mid-20s kind of gal, and I'm like, all right. And what do you know? There's like a dozen. And, well, here I am. So my dad was a bit ahead of his time. He understood then, way back then, 32, 33 years ago, that what is now pretty strikingly evident in our country, that people are looking for something different. People are looking for a place where other people feel and think like they do. They're not looking for the same old politics. They're not looking for the same old religion. And the great news is that your congregation happens to be at an ideal junction to attract these mysterious creatures, the nuns. Because you've got exciting things happening. Because you're about to get a new minister pretty soon. And that's a great time to start telling people out there that you've got exciting things happening here. So first, just a few statistics. You may be familiar with some of them. So the nuns out there are approximately 1 in 3 adults in this country that are unchurched. 1 in 3. That's upwards of 73 million people who have not attended a religious service in the last 6 months. Well, that's a you. Well, anyway. Sorry about that. Oh, come on. I'm a minister, I know. Well, Eric Weiner, he wrote an article in the New York Times, and he describes the nun experience in this way. He says, in my secular, urban, and urbane world, God is rarely spoken of, except in mocking tones. He continues, it's acceptable to cite the latest academic study on, say, happiness, or even better, whip out your brain scan. But God, he's for suckers. So over the years, our own Unitarian Universalist membership has gone up and down. Some of you may have watched it yourselves. If you've been a UU for a long time, you've probably watched that curve go up and down. 1968 marked our highest membership. Our lowest was in 1982. I'll let you analyze those numbers. You can probably figure out why it was highest in 68 and lowest in 82. Now, most denominations report declining membership right now. Except the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Assemblies of God, and a number of Pentecostal groups. Do you know what those churches have in common? Community, fire breathing. Okay? They do not have any ambiguity in their beliefs. When you belong, you believe. You agree to a particular theology. You have a creed, and members identify with their faith in almost every aspect of their life. I mean, they live it. I'm not saying you don't live yours, but I'm saying, boy, you do it. They evangelize. They study. They attend church events several times a week. It's a simple formula. So can we compete with that? Yes. Yes. I've told my congregation, if our lights aren't on at least 5 days a week, we're doing something wrong. I want cars in our parking lot. So here's the catch. Here's the catch. They are not grabbing people off the street who are the nuns, the unchurched, okay? They're not. They're growing from within. They're having babies. They're raising their kids this way, right? Okay? The churches grow from within. They're already conservative people, okay? So it's the Christian people already that are wanting to get back to basics. It's the people that don't have any affiliation, who don't have any other place to go that we need to talk to, that have never really felt a place to go, have never really felt spirituality anywhere else. Those are the people that need to be here. And in general, they're the people who don't like church, right? And how many of us have said, well, we don't really go to church. It's not really church. So, I've talked all over the country, and, some, I don't know about your congregation, but a lot of congregations say we don't use the word church. My congregation is not very old. It's about 35 years old. They argued for weeks about whether to call it Maumee Valley UU Congregation or Maumee Valley UU Society, but never did they say Maumee Valley UU Church. Right? Okay. So that's a thing. So, but, and I know a former president of our congregation, she said, I never tell people I belong to a church. Never. So these people aren't looking for a church experience. So in general, we fit that bill, whether we like it or not. So what we need to do is get those people into our buildings. And then when they see that we don't make sacrifices, except the third Tuesday on the full moon, then once they're here, they go, wow, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I wanted, but I didn't know you were there. Although, by the way, I've got to compliment you guys. I drove up and I went, wow, I can't miss this place. And you've got a great location. You're like right off a main road. Holy mackerel, you're easy to get to. Right there. Good signage. I don't know why so many UU churches have these little signs that are about that tall, and they're wooden, and they're usually white with black lettering that's peeling off, and there's a tree in front of them.
We used to have that.
Yeah. And by God, you don't want anybody to know where you are. And some of the biggest churches, you would not believe, some of the biggest churches, you can't find them. I don't know why. It's one of the first things I do when I go there, and I'm like, are you hiding from something? Okay. So, obviously, I felt very welcomed when I got here. You're welcoming to people. You're welcome. I don't know if anybody's new here today, a visitor, but, you're warm. And anyone who walks through the door is going to be treated well, right? I'm sure you treat people well. But the problem is you got to get them in the door. And I get so frustrated when I hear, people in congregations talking about all these wonderful organizations that they belong to. People volunteer. That's one of the things we do really well. We volunteer and we give money away. Usually not to our church, but we give a lot of money away. But we're afraid to invite the people that we meet in all those other places to the place that plays a major role in our lives. And usually it's why we go out and volunteer. It's because we learn our values here and then we go out and live them out there, but we don't bring anybody back here. So, we've got these declining numbers, yet we're afraid to talk about it. And we've got the best thing going in town, don't we? Yeah. So there's this huge group of great people, moral people, ethical people, people who work for peace and justice and the environment, who are looking for some sort of spiritual aspect to their lives, and we can't get them through our doors. And they're just like us. They say they search for truth and for meaning in their lives, but they don't think they can find it in a religion, but it's only because they don't know it's there. They say that they want their children to grow up learning about religions, and they want some guidance, but they don't know we're here. And they're philanthropic, but they don't know where to go. So, what do? Well, the good news is we're more mainstream than we think. We're not so radical. We're not the hippies we used to be. Except when I lived in Berkeley. It's still hippie. But we're not weird anymore. We're not the weird people anymore, you know. 4 months after marriage equality became the law of the land, I had dinner with one of the main plaintiffs, Jim Obergefell. Sat down to dinner with him, and he told me, he said, I never thought that I would feel so normal in the United States of America. So we've come a long way, but we're not out of the woods yet. We're not out of the woods yet, because people are still going to say, like, you know, poor little Milo, unitarian-universalism, what's that? You know, some people still think it's a cult. I've been ridiculed by the editor of, not by the editor, but by someone who wrote a letter to the editor of my local city's newspaper for daring to use the word reverend because I spoke of marriage equality, because I spoke of Black Lives Matter, because I put it on our electronic sign. I was recently the chairperson of our interfaith breakfast. Out of 52 churches in our city, 15 participated in our interfaith breakfast. Can you guess why the other ones didn't participate? Can you guess who the speakers were? Muslims, Native Americans, Hindus, Buddhists, Mormons, and someone who is Christian, but, anybody want to take a guess? Transgender. No, the Unitarian-Universalist was the planner. So, there. We've come a ways, but we got a long ways to go. But there is a palpable shift in understanding that we do live in a multi-faith, multicultural world, and we cannot let that opportunity pass us by, because it will. It will. So you might be thinking, that all those nuns out there, though, they already belong to so many groups that, they're not going to want to, find one more group of people. And that's true, they do belong to a lot of groups. But you know what they don't have? They might not have church. They don't have you. That's the difference. So I'm going to tell you a little story about how important one kind person can be. Okay? So there's a rabbi, and he's speaking with a member of his temple, and she knows he's an atheist. And so she says, well, why do you come to temple every week? And the man says, well, you know my friend Bernie? She says, yeah. He says, he comes to temple every week to talk to God. And he says, I come every week to talk to Bernie. You might be Bernie. So we have to stop assuming that our neighbors and our friends aren't interested in us. Don't make that assumption. A nun may just be waiting for us to tell us about your church. They want to hear what you say. Sometimes all it takes is an invitation, a friendly smile, a comfortable chair, a great cup of coffee. I'm assuming it's fair trade. Probably from that Oliver Tease. I went there last night. I spent 2 hours. I will not tell you how much money I spent there, but I loved it. I may have to drive up here just to go there. Thank you for whoever told me to go there. So those might be just the kickers, just to get them here. Or maybe they're afraid, when you talk about your congregation, they're going to, get the sales pitch about heaven. Maybe they don't understand that this is not a traditional church. Maybe they think they're going to hear, oh, you're perfect, just like you are, as long as you devote your life to Christ and do everything that we ask. They don't know that there's alternatives. So I constantly tell my congregation to let everyone know about the community, okay? It's a community. It's a beloved community. Maybe don't even say church or congregation. Talk about your community. Because if it's important enough to show up on a Sunday or even twice a week, if you do some activities, I notice your bulletin, you've got stuff going on. If it's important enough for you to show up, isn't it important enough to tell your best friends about? And I encourage them to tell their friends, hey, we laugh in our church. And in my church, I tell them even their minister wears funny hats, because I do. I can't guarantee your new minister will do that, but, if you really want your new minister to wear funny hats, tell your search committee, and then they'll ask their... I don't know. I have a huge box of funny hats. But seriously, I challenge you to think about what would you tell someone about your congregation to get them to want to be here. And perhaps it's that you share the ministry, that you have young people leading, that are worship associates. What a wonderful thing to be able to say to other people. How many places do you think do that? That's a pretty great thing. That children have a voice, that members speak and actively participate in worship. Anyone can lead. Tell them that you will pick them up and take you to lunch afterwards. That works. I've done it. I'm not kidding. And here's the other really important thing. When you get a new minister, that is the greatest opportunity to tell the community that you're going to have a party. You get articles in the news, tell them about your new minister, have get-togethers, have people come in and meet your person, have interviews, get them on the local PBS, anything that you can do to, have that person introduced to the community and have people come in. It's a beautiful opportunity. You can have a month's worth of publicity. We did when I went to my congregation. So it's a really, and it's crucial to the success that people know who this new person is and get people in the door. Once people get in the door and you've got all these beautiful brochures, you've got a wonderful sanctuary, have a concert or two, you've got a beautiful choir. I mean, it doesn't take much, folks. Once somebody gets in the door and they go, wow, this isn't at all what I expected, that's it. That's it. And once they're in the door, you usually can't screw up too horribly. Unless you're like this author, Barbara Brown Taylor. I don't know if any of you know that person, but she has this friend that she talks about that always greets her with this monologue about his latest triumphs. And he's got like these inner conflicts, and he'll just like, the minute she sees him, he'll just go, blah, 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 and then he'll start to wind down and he'll go, well, that's enough about me. And then he says, what do you think about me? So, yeah. So that's, don't do that. But really, the people that we're after, they have the same concerns, the same life issues, the same loves, the same questions that you do. They value curiosity. They want intellectual freedom. They wonder how their lives fit into the greater cosmos. They're looking for an experimental approach to religion. It's the same stuff that you guys want. They put a high value on relationships, beauty, love, creativity. Right? Does that sound like you guys? Because when mainline denominations are filled with the recitation of Bible verses, we're providing a wide array of philosophies, and we're challenged to weigh what rings true for us. And having companions on the journey helps us to ask difficult questions. So that's what the unchurched people need to know about us. And while other people might be telling people how to behave, how to dress, how to pray, our religion can't really be pinned down. And that isn't a detriment. That is not a detriment. It's something that is felt and embodied. There's a professor of sociology and religion, Paul Lichterman, and he calls it individual embodiment, and he calls it this, and I love this image. Think about this image. Wearing your faith. See, congregations provide the material, but each individual creates a garment that you wear in the world. So think about how you wear your faith. Do you only put it on when you walk through your church doors? Do you wear it at home? Do you cover it up when you're not around other UUs? Or do you wear it every day? The challenge is to make it your favorite outfit all the time. So, right now, when you are in the middle of, or the beginning of a ministerial search, this is a good time to invite your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers here, because you're going to be working on articulating what your church is about. You're going to be examining your values. You're going to be dreaming big about where you want to go in the future, what the vision of this congregation is. You're going to be embarking on a search for a minister who's going to take you into the future. And maybe even you're going to be working on that 3-point Milo question. What is Unitarian Universalism? Or even better yet, what is this church? So I just asked you to consider all those people out here that you can get in here and join you on that really exciting journey. And, like that woman in Georgia, perhaps your church can save a life from going in a bad direction. And, by the way, I'm living proof that one visit to a UU church could make a huge difference in someone's life as well. May it be so. I wish you luck.